behind the library door. We crossed a line we could never erase. I still remember that night, the rain tapping against the old library windows, the faint smell of dust and paper, and the way his eyes looked at me like he was reading a secret written only for him. My name is Ava Carter, and during my 3rd year at Westbridge University, I crossed a line I promised myself I never would. It all started with a group project for Professor Keaton's psychology class. We were paired randomly, and of course, fate, or something more mischievous, decided to pair me with Ethan Reed. Ethan was everything I wasn't supposed to fall for: competent, charming, the kind of man who walked into a room and every girl's pulse followed. But he was also quiet sometimes, unexpectedly thoughtful, and that combination was dangerous. We decided to meet in the university library after hours. It was supposed to be a study session. Nothing more. But then, everything changed. That night, the campus was half asleep. The rain made the world feel smaller, like only he and I existed. I remember sitting at the wooden table, surrounded by stacks of books, pretending to read, though my eyes kept finding him instead. He looked so focused, the lamplight catching the sharp lines of his face. His sleeves were rolled up, veins running like ink beneath his skin. Every time he spoke, his voice was low and warm, pulling me in closer. I tried to keep it professional. I really did. But every time our hands brushed while reaching for the same notebook, something inside me shifted, quietly, deeply. At one point, he looked up and caught me staring. "What?" he asked, a teasing smile forming. "Nothing," I said too quickly, my cheeks burning. He leaned back in his chair. "You're a terrible liar, Ava." I tried to laugh it off, but the sound caught in my throat. That silence between us, heavy, electric, lasted longer than it should have. When the clock struck 9, the librarian announced closing time. But Ethan wasn't done. "Let's stay a bit longer," he whispered. I told her we're finishing a project for Keaton. "She won't mind." I nodded. My heart was already racing. We worked another hour, though neither of us could focus. The rain outside grew louder, and the lights dimmed to half. The only glow left was from the lamp above us, soft, golden, intimate. Ethan suddenly stood and walked toward the back section, the old history aisle, rarely visited. He glanced back. "Come here, I want to show you something." I followed. Behind the tall oak shelves, the world went quiet. Just the sound of rain and breathing, his and mine. He stopped, turned, and said softly, "You make it impossible to focus." I froze. "What do you mean?" His eyes searched mine. "You know what I mean." Before I could think, he reached up and brushed a strand of hair from my face, slowly, gently, like he'd been waiting all night for an excuse. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. "I shouldn't," I whispered. "Then tell me to stop," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. I didn't. He leaned in closer, not fast, not greedy, but careful, as if memorizing the inches between us. When his lips finally touched mine, it wasn't fireworks. It was gravity, the soft pull of something inevitable. And behind that library door, everything we'd been holding back spilled into the quiet. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen glances, whispered jokes, and long study nights that weren't really about studying. We told no one. It was our secret, and secrets, I learned, can be both beautiful and dangerous. Ethan wasn't just another student. He was Professor Keaton's research assistant, older, working toward his master's, with a future already mapped out. I should have known better. He should have walked away. But instead, we kept walking deeper into a maze we couldn't escape. There were days we barely spoke in public. But when the world wasn't watching, he'd hold me like he was afraid I'd disappear. One night, after a seminar, he found me outside the lecture hall. "Come with me," he said. "Where?" "Somewhere quiet." We ended up at the old campus observatory, abandoned, but still open. He brought a small lantern, and under that pale light, he told me he'd been offered a position overseas. London. I felt my chest tighten. So this is goodbye? He looked at me, eyes heavy with everything we couldn't say. It doesn't have to be. But it will be, I said softly. You know it will. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he kissed me, deeper than he ever had before. It felt like a promise and a goodbye tangled into one. When we pulled away, I said, maybe one day, when everything's simpler. He smiled sadly. Ava, nothing about us will ever be simple. Weeks passed. He left. I tried to move on, focusing on classes, on graduation, on pretending I wasn't still checking my phone for messages that never came. Then, one evening, months later, I got an email. Subject, behind the library door. My breath caught. It was from him. He wrote. Do you remember that night? I think about it more than I should. I thought I could leave it behind, but I can't. There's a position opening here in London, for a psychology assistant. It's yours if you want it. I'll be waiting, by the library steps, if you still believe in second chances. I didn't even hesitate. The next week, I landed in London. It was drizzling, just like that first night. I walked to the small local university where he worked. And there he was. Standing on the stone steps, hands in pockets, rain in his hair, looking at me like no time had passed at all. You came, he said softly. I told you, I whispered, I never forgot. He took a step forward, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him even through the cold. Are you still afraid we crossed a line? He asked. I smiled. Maybe. But some lines were meant to be crossed. He laughed quietly, pulling me into his arms. The world faded, just like it had behind those library doors. This time, though, we didn't hide. Now, years later, every time it rains, I find myself remembering that first night, the books, the quiet, the way his eyes found mine like a secret he refused to keep. We've built a life together, not perfect, not simple, but real. He still teases me for blushing too easily, I still pretend to be annoyed. But sometimes, when the world slows down, he'll whisper in my ear, do you remember the library? And I'll smile and say, how could I ever forget? Because that's where it all began, where two people crossed a line they could never erase, and somehow, found forever on the other side.